So it's a new week, and we are essentially at the start of the 2020 election right now. Now, of course, we've been figuring out who's going to be the Democratic nominee. People have been campaigning for a year now. But what I mean is we are now just weeks, as I told you last week, from the first votes, early voting and absentee voting starting in at least 3 states in just over 5 weeks. So we need to have a very precise plan for the next 5 weeks and of course, for the 3 months until the November election. And the plan, as much as being an offensive plan against Donald Trump in order to remove Donald Trump, the left needs a defensive plan as well. And I mean defense against self-destructive elements of the left so that we don't self-destruct and allow Donald Trump to get another 4 years in office, which would be, I mean, listen, I don't want to be hyperbolic. I don't even want to assign language to it right now because it's not the point of this story. But another 4 years of Trump would be very, very bad. Let's put it that way. And one of the things that we have to be very careful of right now is for the left to avoid engaging in fights that right now are irrelevant and could potentially simply allow Trump to get another 4 years. My advice for the left, first of all, my advice is for the left and not for the right, because I'm on the left. The right is making all sorts of mistakes. I hope they continue to make mistakes, and we should let them make mistakes. This is not about giving the right advice. This is about giving the left advice. But at the same time, we should understand how certain fights that are right now irrelevant don't need to be put aside forever. We just need to be thinking carefully about what we're doing. And that's where I want to go first. This is not a disclaimer, but it is a clarification. This is not about compromising progressive policy or values. This is just realizing we have 3 months left. We have to come together. These 3 months are the last thing we have to remove Donald Trump. And we have to put policy differences within the left that are currently irrelevant aside, because if Trump wins, our chances of getting anything done are zero. In other words, the intra-left debates, if Trump wins, will be irrelevant for 4 more years, because either way, we're not getting anything done with Donald Trump in the White House again. If Joe Biden wins, then we go right back to these disagreements within the left, because the point is, what do we want to push Joe Biden to do? What can we push Joe Biden to do from the left? And if Democrats were able to take the Senate in November, which is looking more likely now than it was a month ago, I'll talk about that later, it becomes an even more important discussion. Now, what I'm specifically looking to here are some of the different wings of the left where there are disagreements. And what I want is for everybody to understand that we don't lose anything by postponing these disagreements for 3 months. And we do ourselves a lot of good without harming the movement. Now, I'll give you some examples to make this really clear. I don't want this to just remain some vague thing. Socialism versus social democracy. Okay. This has become a very important, popular, relevant, heated debate on the left lately. Right now, that debate does nothing for us. It actually does nothing for us in 2 different ways. Number one, whether you want socialism or social democracy, the next step is social democracy from where we are today. There's no way the United States is going to be a socialist country anytime soon. When Trump warns the Marxists are taking over, that's not true. When the right warns the U.S. could become socialist if Biden wins, that's not true. And when the socialist left says we could have a socialist revolution and be a socialist country, none of those things are happening anytime soon. And so the point is, if you're a socialist, which I happen not to be, you are going to have to come through social democracy to get to socialism. That's the reality. With Biden, we have the opportunity to get some policy done that is socially democratic. If you look at Biden's ideas on healthcare, taxation, climate change, clean energy, they're not exactly what I want, and I'll address that later, but they're closer to the direction that both social democrats and socialists want to go from where we are today. So we're not going to finish that fight in the next 3 months. We're just not. Let's get Trump out, and then let's start pushing Biden in the direction we all agree he needs to go. At some point in the future, if we succeed, socialism versus social democracy will be relevant to policy. It's not the next step. It's not happening in the next 3 months. So why are we going to argue about that right now when we're trying to remove Donald Trump. Just some other little examples. Here's one that I thought of just looking at my Twitter this morning. There's this journalist, Mehdi Hassan, and we follow each other on Twitter. I've retweeted some of his work that I think is great. He's retweeted some of our stuff. We're in agreement about many, many things. We happen to disagree, Mehdi and I, about BDS with respect to Israel. Boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. I believe that the movement is counterproductive. I don't think it'll lead to the kind of change I want to see. Mehdi Hassan supports BDS. Great. It's a disagreement. It's a completely irrelevant one for the next 3 months because we have a president, I think both Mehdi and I would agree, we have a president right now who's in bed with the worst of the Israeli right in his support of Benjamin Netanyahu, and has the worst instincts, period, when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So we're both against Benjamin Netanyahu. We're both against Donald Trump. Trump must be removed. So why would we argue about BDS for the next 3 months rather than focusing on removing Donald Trump? Another example, which is maybe more relevant to you in the immediate, single-payer healthcare. Trump is not for single-payer, neither is Joe Biden. What Joe Biden is proposing is better than what Donald Trump is proposing. And most Democrats in the Senate don't even support single-payer health care right now. So for the next 3 months, why would we make the dividing line? Does Biden support single-payer or not? It makes no sense. Either Biden or Trump are going to be inaugurated on January 20th. Healthcare will improve if Biden gets his way. We can push him to improve it even more, hopefully. And with Trump, we get nothing. We get fewer people covered if Trump gets his way. So what are we doing? Now, for people who are going to react very negatively to what I'm saying, and they'll write to me and they'll say, David, you're only saying this because you're not a socialist and you are a Democratic Party shill, or whatever argument you're going to make. You're missing exactly the point that I'm making. Whether or not I'm a Democratic shill, and by the way, I'm not even a Democrat, has no bearing whatsoever on the left having opportunity with Joe Biden and none with Donald Trump. That's it. And it's particularly important right now not to operate for the next 3 months in a way that will serve to divide the left and give Donald Trump and the right an opportunity to be elected for another 4 years, partially by fomenting this division on the left, which is exactly what they want to do. On January 21st, if Joe Biden is inaugurated on January 20th, on January 21st, we have the ball back, as I like to say, and we immediately go back to these important discussions. We immediately go back on January 21st to seeing the Republicans in the Lincoln Project, this Republican group trying to remove Trump. As soon as Biden's inaugurated, they're no longer on our side. I imagine they immediately go back to advocating for their, so-called small government conservative values or whatever. These are all discussions, about healthcare or whatever topic. We go right back to those discussions. And in fact, if we do get the ball back, which that's how I've been analogizing removing Trump and electing Joe Biden. Once we get the ball back, we then have to try to put some points on the board. And that means arguing about the right plays to call and having these policy debates. But at this point, it's July 27th. If we miss the forest for the trees, we're not just doing the United States a disservice. We're doing the world a disservice, given the level of destruction that Donald Trump has rained upon this country over the last 3.5 years. So this is not shut up and get in line with Democratic Party centrism and cronyism. That's not what this is about. This is about we get nothing if Donald Trump gets reelected. The world will hate us even more. It will ruin our relationships with allies even more. It will put us even further behind on climate change, irreparably so, versus we get Trump out, Biden goes in, hopefully with a reasonable vice president, which should know soon. I want to know who the cabinet will be. We want to keep looking at the policy, and we have an opportunity if Joe Biden gets elected. Now, there will be a contingent of my audience that will disagree on principle with what I'm saying, because they are in the camp of you've got to burn it all down to build it back up. And these are some of the same folks who said, if it's not going to be Bernie in 2016, I don't care if it's Trump because it'll accelerate the destruction of the country. Well, we're really no closer to any kind of socialist revolution as a result of 4 years of Trump, but we are destroying the planet. We're in the middle of arguably one of the worst 5 global responses to this pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, which has subsequently led to an even worse economic disaster than was necessary. It's failed. That approach has failed. And go back and check out my clips where I point out the progress in the modern political era has been incremental progress by getting better people in, getting better people on the Supreme Court, and moving things in the right direction. So let's come together. Let's do the right thing. And I promise you, in 3 months, we can get right back to the same divisive debates if that's what you want to do, hopefully in a more productive way with the experience and hindsight of seeing what we experienced during the Donald Trump presidency. If we get another 4 years of Trump, who knows what's next, but it's not good. So let's come together on this issue. This is not a long time. You know, for people desperate to talk about a socialist revolution to knock out neoliberalism and, you know, that wing of my audience, 3 months is not a long time. Let's just put that energy to get out the vote and removing Donald Trump. It's just 3 months. Okay. It's going to go. Look, we've been in quarantine for 5 months. It's gone by like that because every day looks very, very similar. These 3 months will go by quickly. Even during the transition, we can get back to these debates if that's what you want. Let's do it. Let's come together for the next 3 months. Let me know where you disagree with me. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. And remember, you can get the daily audio podcast from The David Pakman Show every single day, right around 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on any of your favorite or least despised podcasting apps, whether that's Google Play Podcasts or Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, iTunes, et cetera, et cetera. Get the daily audio podcast. Let me know what you think about avoiding these self-destructive and presently irrelevant debates on Twitter at @DPakman. And I will be back with much more just moments from now. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.